lovely adult children. On the edge? Almost 18? Oh, almost adult. Wow. She is a great educator. She's a Christian woman. And I think she is the person that should be doing the topic, the preacher and his grammar. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome to the podium Sister Rhonda Morgan.
Sister Linda Tobias said to me a little while ago, I came to see. And I was walking away. And she realized that I had missed it. So she said, I came to see. And then I got it. Summit of Emerging Evangelist. But I smiled at that as well because I sat there and I thought I should sing. Oh, no, I'm not going to do that. But then I will sing. You know what I'll sing? See what the Lord has done for me. See what a mighty God he is. You know that one? See, well, why aren't you singing? What the Lord has done for me. See what a mighty God he is. He is a miracle. That he is a miracle. Oh, he is a wonder, a miracle worker. He is a miracle working God. All right, it's not a chorus session. See, I would just like to thank Dr. Claudius Morgan, the administration of Caru, and all who saw it fit to have us in this forum on this beautiful Sabbath morning. What we are doing here is important, and I believe you know that. That's why you consented to come. You could have been anywhere else today, but is it good to be here? Let me see the hands of those who feel it's good to be here. I am glad you came. We have a few things to look at. Most of them are obviously reminders for most of you. One or two things might be new to some of you, but that's why I like the idea of an afternoon session, because then you get to ask your questions. Then you get to say, Sister Morgan, this particular thing in English is bothering me, and I will like to get a handle on it before I leave this place. So that's what our afternoon session will do for us. For now, we'll just present. Thank you, Pastor Frederick, for that sermon. Thank you, Sister Morgan, for that song. Jerusalem, if we didn't believe that that is where we need to be and that we need to take somebody with us, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't bother. Ultimately, it's about that new Jerusalem. And out of Pastor Frederick's sermon, I got my sermon. Because out of everybody's sermon, I must get a sermon. Amen. We must always learn something from his sermon. What he said about Paul today reminds me of Galatians chapter 1, 11 and 12. Paul says, I did not. Actually, he says it like this, but I certify you, brethren, that the gospel that is preached of me is not after me. For I neither received it of man, neither was I taught it, but by the revelation of Jesus Christ. They gave Paul a lot of trouble. Those other disciples taught well, thought about him as unworthy and taught other people to think of him as unworthy. But Paul said to them, let me tell you something. You see, this gospel, I don't know about y'all. You feel like you walked with him on Galilee. And you feel like you talked with him on the streets and you ate with him in the houses. But let me tell you something. When he revealed himself to me, it was an experience that none of you can talk about. So don't shove me out. Don't shun me. I am as much preacher and evangelist as any of you. They gave him a hard time, but by the time Paul was done with them, they had to open arms and accept him. And what a preacher. What an evangelist Paul was. Did he worry about grammar? When I was at USC, CUC for me, I heard about Koine Greek and not necessarily speaking it in the proper Greek or not knowing the Hebrew. And by the way, I used to love to sit in the classes with the theologians and score better grades than they did. I would beat up the theologians in their classes. In their classes. It was the English that did it? No. It was because I paid attention while some fell asleep. And there was tamarind season. And there were tamarind balls. So I would eat my tamarind balls and then I would save the seeds. And anytime those theologians fell asleep, they said, Miss Morgan, you're too idle. And then they'll fall asleep, especially in Pastor Dodo's class. Sorry, Pastor Daniel's class. They'll fall asleep in the class. And I'd wake them up by threatening to make statistics out of their number of sleep times and put it on the notice board downstairs. So you should see men fighting to keep their eyes open because they did not want to make it onto my statistics chart. But we had great fun. We did. The preacher and his grammar. No, Claudius was always wide awake. Never threw a tamarind seed at Claudius. I threw other things at him, but not tamarind seeds. The preacher and his grammar. Shall we? Oh, that's me, right? What is grammar? Read with me, please, everybody. The whole system and structure of a language, which includes, yes, semantics. So what is the syntax? The arrangement of words. Great. How about morphology? Have I lost anybody so far? I've lost you? Ronnie, I'll find you back. Okay, phonology. That branch of linguistics. Pastor Morgan, will they get this as well? Yes, okay, good. So we can go a little bit faster. Phonetics, what is that one? The branch of linguistics that studies the sounds of human speech, the study of the reception and perception of speech sounds by the listener. And of course, because we are from different islands of the Caribbean, different territories, our sounds will not be the same. Am I right? We listened to Pastor Frederick, and that was very St. Lucian. And it doesn't matter where in the world he lives, some of that Lucian accent will come through, right? We are listening to Pastor Morgan. That's very Vincentian. And Pastor Bertie has lived in a number of places over the years, but there's still something very much Guyanese that underlies everything he says. We don't speak the same way, but that's not a problem, because once you have the grammar under control, your audience anyway should be able to understand you. So we follow a number of practices here in the Caribbean that most of us understand. For example, we don't like to use our verbs. Most of us say, I going home, right? I going home. Well, the Bajan say, I laughing. Right, Pastor Beckles? Pastor said Frost in the good Barbadian accent up there for me. Oh, you don't speak like that? Are you laughing? Somewhere between St. Vincent and Jamaica, you hear, I going. I going. I going. I going home. Me gone. Gone. This afternoon as well, we will look at, is dialect okay in the pulpit? So that for this afternoon. But we tend not to include our verbs. So we do say, I going home. But all of us here understand. I just made an error. I don't hear anybody correcting me. All of us here I know. That's another thing I forgot to tell you. Anything I say wrong, you better correct me quickly before I move on. Anything you see up there that's wrong, it's your responsibility to correct it. So back up. All of us. All of us understand. Some of us add words that are unnecessary. My Vincentian brethren like to say, I had was to go. That's too much. I had to go. Why do we need to say I had was to go? I don't know if any other territory does it like that. I had was to go. I had was to go in town. Oh, that makes it worse. There are preachers who claim it is fine if I'm grammatically challenged as long as I have communicated. But if they are particularly powerful preachers, they want to embrace power over polish. But the most effective past evangelist is the one who possesses both power and polish. And it means that you can switch. I always say the master of the language is the person who can switch readily, depending on your forum. We will get into the dialect this afternoon, no problem. Now, if the preacher claims that he or she is not linguistically inclined and makes no effort to improve linguistic skills, there is a descriptive word for that person: lazy. And I'm not going to apologize for that. Every verb comes with 3 basic forms. They're called the principal parts of the verb. Everybody will know this, of course. Present tense, past tense, and the past participle. Now, the tense indicates time of action or condition. What do we mean? Regular verbs form their past tenses and past participles by simply adding D or ED. Like I said, I'm just saying to you things that you already know. So really simple words like call, past tense, called, past participle, called. But bake, past tense, baked, past participle, baked. But then we've got challenges, like when the ED changes to T. Now, I build today, I built yesterday, and it used to be actually, yes, it used to be builded, but that one has become obsolete. So we now simply use the T. I had built sometime previously. Some verbs are what we call irregular. And the speaker or writer has to simply learn them, because the change in the vowel is not the only thing that makes such verbs irregular. So we go sing, sang, sung, drive, drove, driven, begin, began, begun. We're going to do this whole list. Let's go. Come, came, come. Run, ran, run. Choose, ooh. Something is wrong in the middle. Oh, no, I'm not supposed to fix it. You should. Choose, chose, chosen. Do, did, done. Look at the other one. Let, doesn't change. But go, went, gone. Lie, lay, lain. Lie, lied, lied. Lose, lost, lost. Burst, burst, burst. Rise, rose, risen. Take some notes. If anything at all bothers you here, we bring it back this afternoon. Okay? For example, tricky ones are lie, lay, and lane. Yes. When and how do we use lie, lay, lane, lie, lied, lied? I can pause on it for a little bit. The second set deals with telling the truth or not telling the truth. So, to tell an untruth is to lie. But the one above, lie and laying, is to be in a reclining position. So, I lie here, but yesterday I lay there. And we have to do the to have infinitive with the past participle to get the last part, the laying. So I have lain in a hospital bed for 2 weeks. Okay, there's that puzzle on the face. See why we're going to get back to it? Yes. Or he has lain there for, let's go to that man by the pool of Bethesda. But now we have to go to the past perfect tense for that. We need an HAD now. He had lain there for how many years? For 38 years. He had lain. So we lie on this bed today, but we lay on our beds last night. But in the case of something that had happened over time, we can go to the perfect tense. In the case of our man by the pool of Bethesda, that's a done deal. So we go to the had. He had lain there. Sometimes I hear the preacher say he had laid there. If we say laid, it is the act of putting something down in that same reclining position. So I will lay it down. How do we know that one? I'm gonna lay down I will put it down to rest. So I lay it down. But then I laid it down yesterday. I put it down to rest yesterday. So obviously I did not include the lay and the laid in this one. Okay, but I know you're coming back at me this afternoon for some more on that one. The infinitive is to sing. We are looking now at the verb sing. The infinitive carries the to always. To something. So this one is to sing. This verb is made more complicated because we sing songs. So I hear preachers hesitate on statements like, the song will be sung to the accompaniment of the organ. The problem there is we have song and sung. Actually, the past participle of sing is a softer sound than song. The phonetics will tell you have to do this. Oh, song. Blessed assurance is a song. Past participle of the verb sing is softer. Song. It's not a song. It's sung. Sing, sang, sung. This song cannot be sung well unless we practice it. Now let me hear you on that one. But here comes the trouble. Let's go. Your faces are priceless. I'm looking at some faces like, what just happened there? That's the trouble thing right there. And we find that the tongue does not quite wrap around those syllables sometimes. Let's go again. We can sing the song that was sung, that they sang last week, but it will be sung in parts. And you can do that quite readily standing on your pulpit. You just have to remember, where does it fit? Where does it go? We can sing. We are about to sing. What are we singing? The thing, the noun, the song that was sung. That's a whole different structure. But if we stick with that, they sang, we got it right. But it will be sung. Or we will have to sing it in parts if we come back to sing. So we can put another 3 or 4 phrases in there and the sentence is not quite finished. Okay, are we comfortable with that trouble one? Some of us are. All right. You have a few seconds to memorize it, and then you have to say it eyes closed. No mistake. All right, look at it carefully. Good. Eyes are closed, and go. Was that easy? Much better. Now the past, somebody said not really. But the past participle of a verb is important because it functions as an adjective as well. So past participle, sung, can give us some problems. But anytime we come across the past participle of a verb, we have to look at it carefully because it can be acting or functioning like verb, but it can also be an adjective. And by the way, we say adjective. I've heard some people say adjective. Again, it depends on your orientation. So we have bless, blessed, blessed. Present tense, past tense, past participle. One of the most famous phrases on social media. Have a blessed day. And I cannot stand it. It's missing something. So many people say it, but they do not recognize that it is wrong. Have a blessed day. This is the correct form because the past participle is functioning here as an adjective. Have a nice day. We don't want to say nice. Have a wonderful day, but nice and wonderful are adjectives. So when we say have a whatever day, it must be an adjective because the adjective describes that noun. So what kind of day will the person want you to have? A blessed day. And I hope I never see any of you on social media making that error. Have a blessed day or speaking it. The past participle is also important to infinitives like to be and to have. So let's break it down or conjugate the to be in the present tense, and we are sticking with our blessed word. So, quickly and easily. I am blessed. You are blessed. Good. Now we are on to subject and verb agreement. And I'm hearing, that's the one. Now, fundamental to any correct sentence structure is the agreement of the subject with its verb. Simplest rule we can follow is to ensure that a singular subject agrees with a singular verb. And a plural subject agreeing with a plural verb will always be correct. Verbs are generally made plural by removing the S or the ES from the singular form. Now it becomes plural when it loses the S or the ES. And somebody says, that doesn't sound right. Remember, we are dealing with the verbs, not the nouns. The nouns become pluralized when we add the S and the ES. It's the verb that becomes pluralized when we lose the S or the ES, which is why, well, we have exceptions to the rule. So let's just take the one we have. Take the verb carry, and I like my little African sister there, carrying her basket. What happened with carry? I carry, you carry, but he, she, it carries. So what just happened? The Y is replaced. IES. I carry, you carry. So when the word ends in Y, sometimes that Y becomes IES in the singular. So he, she, it carries. The challenge often lies in the number and positioning of the nouns in the sentence. This one is from a hymn. Does anybody recognize that line? Lo, he comes. Can we just sing out that line? The Lord. Very good. Now the syntax becomes crucial. How are we positioning our words? And what will that mean for the meaning of the word? Earth, for example. Let's take earth. Singular, and we've got no other noun in here. Earth is your noun. Her is your pronoun. Latest is your adverb, pangs. Oh, yes, we do have another noun, and that one is actually the plural. The is your auxiliary verb, and summing is actually, it is doing something. Is will not leave summing alone. Those two go together in auxiliary fashion. Summing. But the confusion comes when people see pangs before is. Earth, her latest pangs are summing? Not correct. Why? Subject is earth. How many? One. So earth, her latest pangs is summing. Even if we were to take out her latest pangs and leave only three, well, if we do that, then we see why we need the singular is with the earth that starts it as a subject. Yes. The noun or nouns. That's right. So earth, her latest pangs is summing. The problem comes when we have what you call interruptive clauses or phrases. All the words that come in between, and particularly if it's a number of them, that can get quite confusing for somebody. Let's back up. Earth, her latest pangs is summing. Let's turn it around, and that's where your syntax comes in, the order. Earth is summing her latest pangs. Yeah, we have some English majors in here too. We can turn it around and it will mean the same thing. But for the purpose of singing, it is better rendered like that. Degrees of comparison for adjectives. They carry one syllable in the positive, they take an ER in the comparative, and an EST in the superlative. So something as simple as keen, keener, keenest, but if the adjective is carrying more than one syllable, we have more or less in the comparative, most or least in the superlative. So we don't say fragranter and fragrant est. This is fragrant, but that room over there, more fragrant. And then always remember your more is going to define two. Most fragrant, 3 or 4 rooms. How about difficult? Difficult, more difficult, most difficult. Adjectives that carry one or more syllable and end in Y are usually compared by adding the ER or the EST. So we say if it's 2 syllables, it should really carry more or most. But look at this. Clumsy, there are only 2. And yet, we have clumsier and clumsiest. Or noisy, noisier, noisiest. What happened there? It ends in Y. These are rules that the preacher of English must remember, learn, know. There are irregular comparisons, however, and it gets crazy now. This is bad, but that was worse. But worse will only be when we have 2 things to compare. But that was the worst hurricane season we ever had. Which one is that? Comparative or superlative? The superlative. That was the worst. Not wassera. I've also heard that. Oh, this is wassa and wassera. Bad, worse, and worse. The other one we know. This is good. That is better. This one is the best of all. This is little. That is less. This is the least, especially when we speak of quantities. Then we have out, outer, outermost. Not to be confused with uttermost. Because if we do uttermost, we'll have to start with ut. And I've never seen that word. Yeah. Give me, shall I go back? One of the examples, okay. Or we can use a definite article the. Yes. Yes. Into, especially in writing. We tend not to, are you understanding the question? We tend not to say this is best, but we can. Structurally, it's not incorrect. But we tend to say this is the best. So this is good. The second one is better. But this one is best. But we usually say this one is the best. And sometimes we add it all. This one is the best of all. But we don't need to say that because it is what you call in English understood. It's already understood. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Yes. We don't say more cleaner and more better because we started with what was the positive? We started with clean, the one syllable. So usually when you have the one syllable, except it ends in a Y, you can safely say clean, simply add ER and the EST. But it is a common error. Yes. Thank you. Anything else? Or can we move on now? Thank you. We do not compare words like these. There is no perfecter, perfectess, more perfect, and most perfect. Well, if we're being facetious, we might say most perfect. Or you think you're most perfect. For emphasis? For emphasis. Maybe. Yes. But unique is unique. So is square. So is universal, single, supreme, fatal, empty, vertical. Oh, that needs to move from vertical. That's vertical. Full is another word. Alone. We need to spread that out a little. Alone. Separated from dead. Final, mortal, round, blind, everlasting, wrong. Those carry no comparative, no superlative. Yes. But then people say, but you're wronger than me. And when you listen to kids on the playground, you get the best. But she the wrongest one. No. Words like those. You can't have a situation that is fatal and one that's fataler. If it's fatal, it's fatal. And that is why words like, yeah. Pastor Brent, you need to stop. Pastor Brent said blinder. So I am blind and somebody is blinder than I am. And then there's somebody who's blindest and wronger. You wrong and she wronger. Do you see? These are absolutes. These are absolutes. Then the person is blinder than you. I think both of you blind. Both people are blind. Okay. Then we have those pesky personal pronouns. I and me. Those give trouble. Those give trouble. But I is a subject pronoun. Now I'm warning you, this is the only time one is allowed to say it this way. We can't say I is a subject pronoun. Because I comes with am, not I is. Well, then when the grammar is horrible, you do get some of that, eh? And I think is a Trinidadians that like to say I is a Trinidadian. I is a Trini. I is a Trini boy. I is a boss. For emphasis. Emphasis. I is a real man. Yes. 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 But it's not correct. We can use it for emphasis and we can use it in our dialect, which is really not quite dialect but simply broken English, but for emphasis. But we like to say, I is a Trini Gill. Pardon? I is the ninth letter. So true. And the Beja will say you're true. Me, oh, we didn't do the example. I am prepared for battle. I is the subject of that sentence. Who is prepared for battle? I am. Me is an object pronoun. Again, disclaimer. This is the only time one is allowed to say it this way. Me is a this and no. We don't speak like that. Okay? The battle has been won for me. So me sits out there as an object. I sits in the first sentence as its subject. Yes. Okay, hold on. We're getting to that. Do not jump ahead of the presenter. Compound personal pronouns can be tricky. See, that's our next slide. My wife and I appreciate your generosity. The hotel manager was quite courteous to my husband and me. Sometimes we can't figure out which one. But let us break it down. Who appreciates the generosity of somebody? Well, hold on, one at a time. Who's the first person who appreciates the generosity? My wife. And the next person who appreciates the generosity, the I in the sentence. So, my wife appreciates your generosity. I appreciate your generosity. Put it together. My wife and I appreciate your generosity. The hotel manager was quite courteous to my husband. The hotel manager was quite courteous to me. If we do it the other way, my wife and me appreciate your generosity. Break it down. Break it down. No. Yes, it's true. My wife appreciates your generosity and me. Oh, that is sound like when you're from Africa and you don't quite have it right. Then you go. My wife appreciates your generosity and me appreciate it too. Or Chinese just learning the English language. Me really appreciate your generosity. But no, that is not what we are doing today. My wife appreciates and I appreciate, therefore, plural, two people, my wife and I, plural verb, appreciate your generosity. Break it down again. The hotel manager was quite courteous to my husband. The hotel manager was quite courteous to me. Therefore, go ahead. Therefore, the hotel manager was quite courteous to my husband and me. Now here comes the famous, I would like to thank you on behalf of my wife. And do you notice I left a blank for you just before we go there? Yes. What was a state? The battle was won for me, right? Oh, we can. Yes. It was won for me because Jesus did the fighting. But if it is my own battle that I have won, yes, the battle was won by me. Yes. That clears that up for you? If we say I won the battle, then we just went back to the I as the subject, and that actually makes it active voice, not passive voice. Well, if we have to do grammar, it will take us 2 months to really dig into grammar. That's another summit all by itself. Yes. But it's intriguing stuff. A problem-free, we missed it. Here comes the famous, I would like to say thank you on behalf of my wife and... And don't we hear it at every wedding? Every wedding. Groom gets up and pulls his jacket together and stands there proudly and looks at his guests and he says, I would like to thank you on behalf of, or he might begin, on behalf of my wife and... they usually say on behalf of my wife and I. Some. Hold on. Yes? It sounds wrong. Yes. The pronouns, the pesky pronouns are the ones that give us the most trouble. Yes. that's that's exactly inherent in the on behalf of my wife is the you already. You already exist. So look at the bottom. Look at the last part. A problem-free rendering is my wife and I would like to say thank you. But if you're going to use on behalf, and by the way, we're not saying on behalf anymore. It seems to be in behalf now. Now I have a bit of a problem with that. Yes, as a matter of fact, with the definite article again, Sister Nicola, in the behalf of. And I read that in one of Ellen White's writings just the other day, and I'm thinking, was it out? Was it in? Became obsolete, and now we have returned to the in? Because for all my life growing up, we say on behalf of. But in much of the literature out there now, we see in behalf or in the behalf of. And every time I see something like that, I think of Pluto. That was a planet when I was growing up. And suddenly somebody comes along to say, hold on, you don't qualify. And I spent a lot of time mourning Pluto. I'm like, poor Pluto. Why did they have to treat Pluto like that? And whether Pluto is a planet or Pluto is a dog, poor Pluto. You do not treat Pluto like that. Pluto got thrown out of the planet sphere just like that and has been relegated to what? Rock status? That's terrible. So everybody else is suddenly a planet, and Pluto, suppose Pluto decides to get vexed. Suppose Pluto gets upset, and here we go, another word. I sat with a principal a few years ago, and the principal kept saying to me, and Mrs. Morgan, it really upsetted me. And after a while, that upsetted me. I said, I am sorry. I am so sorry. But I can't let you continue like that. Do you have a notepad? And do you have a pen? And I wrote for him, I'm so sorry. But upset is upset now, upset yesterday, and upset later. There's never time when you are upsetted. Emphasis. Emphasis. Okay. Okay, so the compound personal pronouns, those tricky ones. What we do in counseling, therefore, ladies and gentlemen, say to the groom to be, if you stand up to do your thank you speech, and all of this can come into your counseling, a little hint here and a little hint there, not a problem. Just make life easy by saying, my wife and I would like to say thank you. That is so easy, because my wife would like to say thank you. I would like to say thank you. My wife and I would like to thank you. And that really eliminates the, should I say, on behalf of my wife and me, on behalf of my wife and I. Actually, it's never on behalf of my wife and I, unless you are totally Rasta. On behalf of my wife and on behalf of I. Okay? All right, yes. Yes, 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 you have to say that. Yes. Okay. Sorry. Back? For when we use me, when we use I, if it is what we call a subject pronoun, it starts the sentence. And if it's a personal pronoun, it simply replaces a name. What's your first name? Nigel. You will not go about writing a sentence. Nigel came to summit today, and Nigel sat in the front row. And Nigel listened keenly to all of the presenters. What will we say? If we're writing about him, we might write like that. If he's writing about himself, he will say, I. So those pronouns replace names so that it is not awkward or clumsy. Okay. Yes. Okay, that's, hold on. My wife and I say thank you. That's appropriate and correct, because my wife says thank you and I say thank you. You just moved it back to the subject area of your sentence, so then it becomes okay. I will like to. I would like to say thank you. It's just a matter of speaking. You can say, I thank you, but sometimes it is very abrupt, stilted, and clinical. It does not come over well in certain fora. So depending on your forum, you might say, I would like to thank you. And there is nothing wrong with it. Forum. Yes, but English also says forums, you know. And then America has so tampered with our lexicon. Yes. Who would have thunk it? That's actually in some literature now. Not who would have thought it, but who would have thunk it? Yeah, THUNK. 5 more minutes. Common errors then, between and among. And I hear this in the pulpit all the time. Again, it's simple, and I've left it very simple. Among refers to more than 2, between refers to 2. And if we were to do a rhyme, this is what we do. Go. Among refers to more than 2, between refers to 2. So between, and here we go with those pronouns again. Between you and I, no. Between you and me. So between you and between me, there is a space. Oh, those pronouns, we could spend a day on them. But leave it at between will work with 2. 2 people, 2 objects, 2 situations, 2 ideas. Or between us. Yes. Among, anything past 2. Among. And sometimes we have to include previous. The previous day. Okay, let's pause. Can we write that as a sentence for this afternoon? Thank you. Lost and loss. There we go again. Loss is the noun. What's your sentence? She suffered a tremendous loss. That could be of person or home, for example. But lost, with the T sound, is used as both noun and adjective, and sometimes that's where we get lost. So we go out to seek the lost. Jesus came to seek and to save the lost, with the T. But this is indeed a lost cause. Describing the cause is the word lost. So that is the adjective. We go out to seek the lost. That is the noun. But don't confuse it with LOSS. Okay? The off factor. They could have finished a job, but they did not. Sounds right? Not right. We have to say have. Could have finished. And the have sits next to the past participle of the verb finished, because that is what we do it to have. And to be, they are married to the past participles. Whenever we break down to be or to have, we must conclude with the finished, or the concluded, or the connected, or the taught, or the brought. They could have brought, they could have concluded, they could have finished, but we tend to say and write they could off. The off factor. Yes. Could have. That's a contraction and it's fine. Yes. Yes, you can. They could have. But that still isn't an off. That's the contraction for have. They could have. From the pulpit, we hear these statements like these. Because of time constraint. What is the correct word? Because of time. Constraint is the noun. Constrain is the verb. To tie down. Yes, I see you giving that action. We will like a responder from the congregation. SE. All the personnels need to be here. Or that one gets on my nerves. All platform personnels are asked to. And I was so pleased to hear from last night to this morning. Nobody said violence. I was so pleased. Crime and violence. Do you say a violin? Do you say he played a violin? What does he play? We all say violin. So why do we say violence? Vio. Huh? And we need to say a hard vi because it is such a hard word. It is violence. But then maybe it's something better to say violence. More aggression? Blessed? It's the old way. Yes. And because the Bible is filled with the old English, we will hear that. Oh no, we feel a little closer to God when we read it like that. Blessed is the man. Yes. If we say blessed is the man, it does not come over the same way. Blessed assurance. Jesus is mine. Yes. In the same way we love the thee and the thou, we've got to do the oh, no, Pastor Nicola, we can't take that away from us. No. Mm-mm. That one is untouchable. Yes. Yes. No, I'm sorry. No, because violence was never violence. It's spelled VIO. It is just our way of pronouncing. And that one is not correct pronunciation. Yes. Yes. Right. Would can also take a futuristic slant. Yes, we can have the will in there, but we can also have would in there. Both of them will be okay. Yes. All interesting persons. So if you are not interesting, don't come. You have to be a very interesting individual to be a part of this. We are still struggling with interesting and interested. In all interested persons. All interesting persons. So if you are a boring person, you can't be in here. Don't come. And we have a lot more of those, but that was our last slide for this session. Thank you very much. I hope you have some notes and your questions. Thank you.
Okay, you gave her a hand already. I guess, well, let me tell you, the vision is that we keep this group together. If we have to add more, fine, and we send you assignments in English. So that you'll have to send us back. No, you have time to go online and check it. The thing about it is practicing. You see, you got to understand that the church has changed long ago. The most intelligent person in the church was the pastor. And there are a lot of people there now who are professors in English. And what we say affects them. And so we really have to work on our English. Come on, somebody say amen. At least, even if we don't speak it right, we need to write it. And if you know you're not good at English, then look at your notes. And preach your notes. Put it in your head, walk away, and you know what you're saying is there. Amen? Amen. Beautiful. Pastor?
Good morning, everyone, and happy Sabbath. This morning, we are honored to have with us one of our senior ministers within the Caribbean Union. He has renowned himself as a family life educator and also as a visitation specialist. He has conducted several family life seminars throughout the Caribbean. He served as a former president of the South Caribbean Conference. He presently holds a position as the president of the Caribbean Union. And this morning, his presentation will be on home visitation. Ladies and gentlemen and viewers, it is a privilege for me at this point to introduce to you the president of the Caribbean Union, Dr. Kern Tobias.
Thank you very much, Pastor Kurt. All right, I'm sure you are expecting me to tell you to stand, so let me do that right now. You can stand and take a stretch. righty. Thank you very much. You can have your seats. All right, so home visitation, getting it right. That's where we are. And we always want to go to the Bible or the spirit of prophecy to get a reference of what we are talking about. So scripture and the spirit of prophecy are replete with what? References. References that support the necessity and vitality of home visitation. Every pastor understands that the member is our most important asset, our most important reason for being. And the social culture, social network culture has made us feel that once we can see the face on our phones, and that's the member. But the member lives somewhere. The member lives somewhere. And so I am happy to say that that home visitation is still one of the most important indices that contribute to the success of the work of the evangelist. You see, we just finished grammar, so I had to make sure that it was right, really. Some of the references that are available are as follows, and these are references to scripture. So let's read together. It says, Matthew 9:35, what Jesus did there. Proclaiming the good news of the kingdom and healing every disease and sickness. So that the success of an evangelist, as we heard last night and we heard this morning already, the success of an evangelist is having a mindset to traverse, to travel, to mingle, to mix. That's the mindset. A great evangelist, a great preacher, a great pastor, a great shepherd cannot conclude that I would be effective in my office. There's a time for the office, a time to study, but you need to understand what should be engaging my attention on an ongoing basis, what I should give my best energies to. And that's what Christ did. He went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news in their homes, healing every disease and sickness. That's a pastor's major responsibility. Other passages include Luke and Acts. What do they say? They went through the cities and villages, teaching and journeying toward Jerusalem. And Acts 5:42, and daily in the temple and in every house, they ceased not to teach and preach Jesus Christ. That was the culture. I mean, as much as the apostles spent a whole lot of time preaching, they also put aside significant amount of time for home visitation, house to house. And I have to admit that when I was a student at CUC, Dr. Edwin English, was the main theologian at that time. He drilled that. He drilled that in us as theology students. The sheep are the most important of your responsibilities. Take care of the sheep. They are the ones that give the wool. The cattle give the milk. Take care. And that was embedded in my mind. Well, like I said to you last night, I was not really a great speaker, wasn't a great preacher, so I had to find a niche. And in my own understanding and my conviction, this was my niche: home visitation. Home visitation. And I can tell you that as we have the example of Christ and his apostles, it is still relevant. Acts 20:17-21. What does this passage say? It says, and from Miletus he went to Ephesus and called the elders of the church. And when they were come to him, he said unto them, ye know from the first day that I came into Asia, after what manner I have been with you at all seasons, serving the Lord with all humility of mind, and with many tears and temptations which befell by the laying in wait of the Jews. And now how I kept back nothing that was profitable unto you, but have showed you and taught you publicly and from house to house, testifying both to the Jews and also to the Greeks, repentance toward God and faith toward our Lord Jesus Christ. So every pastor, every evangelist needs to honestly ask himself, herself today. What am I good at? The public sphere or the private sphere? And maybe I could further ask, of course, both are important. What am I emphasizing? My role, and happily so, is to emphasize house to house. My colleague, Pastor Frederick, emphasized powerfully the effectiveness of preaching. And so I sat there and said, Lord, I want a little bit of that gift as well. But my focus as a pastor, house to house, brother. House to house. And you'll see why. You see, home visitation is indispensable. Indispensable. Ellen White gives a very powerful quotation, Testimonies, Volume 5, 255. What does she say? A minister enjoys sermonizing, for it is a pleasant part of the work and is comparatively easy. But no minister should be measured by his ability as a speaker. The harder part comes after he leaves the desk, in watering the seed that is sown. The interest awakened should be followed up by personal labor, which includes visiting, holding Bible readings, teaching how to search the scriptures, praying with families and interested ones, seeking to deepen the impression made upon hearts and consciences. So Pastor Frederick and myself will be good colleagues. He preaches, and I lead out in the visitation. Yeah, I mean, and so when I go to the home, I'll say, you heard what the pastor said last night? Yes, and we go it over. Because sometimes in the moment, in the preaching, of course, the points move on very quickly. So whilst the conviction is made, there may not be very good recollection. The pastor, especially if it is the same pastor who preached, then you can go with your notes. And so, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I am a servant of Dr. Morgan this morning. Whatever he tells me to do, if he tells me I have 5 more minutes, that is it. How much more I have? All right, so its success is determined by the singular intention of the pastor to what? Love God's people enough to want to see them saved. I'm saying the singular intention of the pastor to love God's people. You know, that's the example that Christ has given to us. And Paul, who was highlighted already today significantly, Paul says in Romans 10:1, what did he say? Brethren, my heart's desire and prayer to God for Israel is that they might be saved. We want to see people saved. 1 Timothy 2:4-6, who will have all men to be saved and come unto the knowledge of the truth. For there is one God and one mediator between God and men, the man Christ Jesus, who did what? Gave himself a ransom for all, to be testified in due time. And so for the pastor, for the shepherd, for the evangelist, it must not be, well, I done. You know, I am through. I'm finished. I've preached and that is about it. No. That's the easy part of the work. That's the easier part of the work. The more challenging part is to go into the homes of the members. Its success is determined by the singular intention of the pastor to love God's people enough to want to see them saved. Yes, we must recognize that the only way the member would understand and feel that I love is when I knock on that door or say, I'm coming over this evening. You can convince that member, I care about you. I really love you. But you are going to that home not only to say that I love you, but also to do what? Learn about their peculiar circumstance. To provide an avenue for a positive decision to be made to accept Christ. Because, I mean, you see faces in the audience and you don't know what every circumstance is. But when you go to that home, then you understand that that is a mother who has lost a husband or may have lost a child, or the child is in prison. And you can be able to, you go back the next night and you are able to relate from a position of information, from a position of knowledge. And so home visitation allows you to learn. You show up there that next night, and those whose home you visited, they look at you and say, wow, this is an amazing. Imagine he came to my home, and what happens is that the 5 people you visit, they call 5 more people, so 25 people feel that you have visited their homes. By the 5 whose home you visited, they're going to talk about it. If we don't visit, they talk. But when we visit, they talk more. They talk more. And so we are going there to learn, to learn. Listen to what the Spirit of Prophecy says significantly. We go, it says, the work of the gospel minister is to make all men see what is the fellowship of the mystery which from the beginning of the world hath been hid in God. Ephesians 3:9. If one entering upon this work chooses the what? The least sacrificing part, contenting himself with preaching. You know, I mean, I didn't have the courage after this morning's sermon to say what I saying. I didn't have the courage to say that, but this is what the Spirit of Prophecy says. The same Spirit of Prophecy that emphasizes the potency and power of preaching does a comparison. And we just did comparative here. So she's saying, hey, preaching is the easier part. I mean, it's hard to believe that if we do have really conditioned our minds to understand that. Preaching is the easier part. These were things that I came to believe as a student, that preaching was the easier part. I mean, I could remember as a student, the guys going out to preach, and when the driver came to pick them up, I am at the balcony waving them. Nobody invited me to preach. Nobody invited me to preach. And when they came back, I was the one listening. They said, boy, I break up the word today, boy. And I'm learning little things, but nobody's invited me to preach because I was not a speaker. I was no preacher. I had to understand, how could I be effective in ministry? And Mrs. White makes a point that the easier part is the preaching. She says, souls for whom Christ died are perishing for want of what? Well-directed personal labor, and he has mistaken his calling. Who entering upon the ministry is unwilling to do what? To do the personal work that the care of the flock demands. One of the things I say, I have said to myself as a pastor, why should the elder, the brother, the sister who goes to work for 8 hours a day and gives a tenth, if he or she does it faithfully, gives a tenth of his salary so that I can get a salary, why should any of them feel that they have worked more than me? As the shepherd, they are the sheep, I'm the shepherd. Why should they ever feel? And so for me, putting in 6 hours of visitation 2 or 3 times a week was just normal. I try to share these things with some, when I was at the conference level and among colleagues, they feel, well, sure, that you. In other words, ask yourself, if in a month, when have I given like 3 days consecutively every week for a month that will allow the member to know that my pastor loves me, he wants to understand me, he wants to minister to me. These are issues that I have to operate, function up here. It has to operate up here. Doesn't just happen. And the thing is that if you have not really worked in a disciplined, structured way, where you go to work 8 and have to stay right there, the same place until 4 as the teachers and as the laborers. I mean, we are pastors managing our own time, and we have never had a job before. So it's, hey, if you don't know about managing ourselves and our time, we could just, yeah. All right. So we are able to learn their peculiar circumstance and to provide an avenue for that critical decision. All right. The spirit of the true shepherd is one of self-forgetfulness. He loses sight of self in order that he may work the works of God. By the preaching of the word and by personal ministry, they must go together. In the homes of the people, he learns their needs, their sorrows. I'm telling you, you have to go there to learn. You see them in the pulpit, from the pulpit, you don't know what their struggles are. When you go into their homes, you learn their needs, their sorrows, their trials. And cooperating with the great burden bearer, he shares their afflictions, comforts their distresses, relieves their soul hunger, and wins their hearts to God. In this work, the minister is attended by who? The angels of heaven. And he himself, she herself, is instructed and enlightened in the truth that makes wise unto salvation. That's what God says. You see, its success is determined by the singular intention of the pastor to love God's people, to learn about their peculiar circumstance, and to lead the person to Jesus, who is the way, the truth, and the life. You know, Christ has given us the perfect model, and this is a quotation that we use all the time. Christ's method alone will give true success in reaching the people. The Savior did what? Mingled with men as one who desired their good. Mingled. You know, I listened to Pastor Frederick this morning, and he made that point that sometimes because, you know, we have a little knowledge, we are deemed as famous. You know, meeting people, you go, you know, and people are speaking. You know, your greatness is not to be, you know, to be taken as, you know, I'm up here and they are down there. No, I am the shepherd, they are the sheep, so I have to be down there. In my mind, I must never ever feel that I'm away from them. Mingle, you know, mingle. And he showed his sympathy for them. Minister to their needs, won their confidence. Then he bade them did what? To do what? Follow me. There is need of coming close to the people, to their homes. By personal effort, if less time was spent or given to sermonizing, okay, Sister White, get off that now. No, she's not getting off at all. She's just sticking it there. If less time is spent in sermonizing and more time spent in personal ministry, what she says, what will happen? Greater results would be seen. The poor are to be relieved. The sick are to be cared for. The sorrowing and the bereaved comforted. The ignorant instructed. The inexperienced counseled. We are to weep with those that weep and rejoice with those that rejoice. Accompanied by the power of persuasion, the power of prayer, the power of the love of God. This work will not, cannot be without fruit. All right, so the success of the evangelist, the pastor, is her singular intention to love God's people, to learn about their peculiar circumstance, and to lead the person to Jesus. That's what it's about. And that's what is possible as the final point really is lessons. I want to share my own experience, listening and decision making. You know, when I go to visit a person, if you preach in the night and you go to visit a person during the day, this is one of the main texts I use to get a person to make a decision. John 15:13-16. Greater love has no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Christ speaks and says, I call you not servants, for the servant knoweth not what is the Lord doeth, but I have called you friends. For all things that I have heard of my Father, I have made known unto you. You have not chosen me, but I have chosen you and ordained you, that you should go and bring forth fruit, and that your fruit should remain, that whatsoever you shall ask of the Father in my name, he may give it to you. Now, having asked that question, you know, the question then is, Christ has chosen you. Christ has actually made himself vulnerable by saying, I have chosen you. So for that person, do you feel that you are in a position, are you in a state of mind that you are ready to make a decision to accept Christ? Because a friendship has to be a mutual thing. You know, we talk about if they are married, are you married, how did it happen? We go back there and, you know, one person chose, the other responded. So Christ has already said, I have chosen you. Are you in a position, do you feel that you are ready to respond to Christ? If the person says yes, then we move forward. If the person says, I'm not so sure, then you know the book of decisions, those testing truths and whatever the issue is. If the person says no, then you want to find out what may be preventing you from being in that state of readiness. Not married, or Sabbath because I preach on Sabbath, or whatever. Then you can deal with that. In other words, you're not prepared to push a person to the point of decision making until he or she says, I am ready to respond to the choice of Christ. That is critical. I am ready. And if the person wasn't ready today, then you do whatever has to be done from the scripture. You say whatever has to be said, and you go and come back. We pray about it. We ask God to help you to So that, in other words, it's never an issue of, am I trying to force a person to do something that they're not ready to do? Christ has already chosen you. Are you ready to? The Spirit of God has to be given the chance to do the work. You back off. Let the Spirit of God work. Bring that person to a point where he or she knows Christ has already chosen you and he's waiting on your response. All right. So this quotation 257 of Christian service, to everyone who offers himself to the Lord for service, withholding nothing, is given power for the attainment of the measureless results. When we labor diligently for the salvation of our fellow men, God will prosper our very effort. True success in any line of work is not the result of chance or accident or destiny. It is the outworking of what? God's providences, the reward of faith and discretion, of virtue and perseverance. God gives opportunities. Success depends upon the use that we make of them. So as we close this presentation, home visitation, the how, like what we do eventually, sometimes you'd be amazed how God teaches you right there. I guess what has to happen now is, if it is that I am aggressively and passionately involved in home visitation, then congratulations to you. You're well on your way to being an ultimate and ongoing success. That is the building block. That is the foundation. If it is that you have not made it a significant part of your ministry, then as you reflect, as you introspect, then this is something to consider. Begin to think how you can organize your time so that the homes of the members become a greater priority for you, so that God can grant you the success in addition to the great preaching that we want you to demonstrate, the great preachers that we want you to be. God can bless you personally and professionally. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Yes, sir, please. And it's always a joy to involve the administration in our programs. Amen? And we have our last session. We'll go into 1 o'clock, but lunch is not over there. Lunch is right here. Okay, so we'll cut back some time and make sure that you're not too tired. But I hope you took your vitamins this morning. We want to welcome Pastor Beckles. No, the other Beckles from USC came and accosted me. Why is USC not here? Told him, well, I dealt with South Caribbean Conference. Didn't send anybody from USC. Pastor Terry is going to be here this evening. But, visitation is important. And as we continue to inform you and keep this group together, our next summit will be in Barbados. We have a lot of money up there, so we need to use it, I understand. Pastor Beckles. So next summit will be in Barbados. We would include people. We would not erase any of you here, because we want you to be the greatest evangelists in the Caribbean Union, all of you. Amen? Just before Pastor Beckles introduced, let me show you the power of visitation. When I walked in Dominica, Pastor Moranci was one of my members.